So Bernie Sanders is running for president in 2020. I think he's about third in the polls behind Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren. And I was talking to Senator Sanders over Twitter last year. And I said, regarding when he was talking about intellectual dishonesty, because honesty is Bernie's brand. Honesty is Bernie's brand, and he tries to, as much as possible, tell it straight. Of course, that doesn't mean that he's right or that, his system of democratic socialism is necessarily the most virtuous we could use, the most successful we could use, but he does have honesty as his brand, so he says something about intellectual dishonesty here. Let me go ahead and bring that up. Bernie Sanders says, to be politically successful, Trump needs to create enemies and divide us up. He needs to turn men against women, white against black, straight against the LGBT community, Christian against Muslim, native born against immigrant. We will not let him win. So I say that's intellectual dishonesty. And I say that I dislike how your brand has changed, but I accept it. Good luck with this approach. And then I further clarify here, intellectual dishonesty, since everything that Bernie said is correct in a post-truth context, because we are dealing with politics here, which is a post-truth realm, I say I'm implying that Trump does not need to engage in intersectionalism, the modern religion of social justice. That is to say, identity politics. It's generally collectivist, cultural Marxism, social Marxism. I'm implying that Trump does not need to engage in intersectionalism to win, and neither do you. It is a waning tactic, and it's destroying everything. So in my last video, I went after intersectionality, and so I guess I can go after intersectionality again. If you like when I go after intersectionality, leave me a comment in the comments section below, or drop a comment on the Dissenter app if you have Gab. So, yeah, they say that Trump is trying to divide people up. Now, I'm not saying that politicians in the Republican Party and Democrat Party don't do that. They do that. It is an old way. We know from the Southern strategy, we know from the identity politics, the politically correct push of the last 2 decades or so. So, I mean, I've come to the conclusion that, for the most part, the world is divided up into, and I'm going to do it right here. I'm going to do the division right here. It's divided up into people that think more collectively versus those that think more independently. The individual versus the group. So I don't think, I say I'm agnostic to the modern religion that is social justice. I don't think that it's the best way forward for finding equality and equity. Those are things that I want. I believe in the goals in some respect, the overarching egalitarianism, the taking care of those that can't take care of themselves mentality. If you have the rich as the oppressor and then the poor below, I want to look out for the little guy as much as any socialist claims to. But I do find that over time, when you're by design separating people into groups, you're saying men, women, you're saying white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever it might be, whatever ethnic or cultural background you might have, whatever religion you might be, whatever sex or gender you might be, or identify as, whatever pronouns you might use, whatever, like I said, religion, occupation, even hobbies. We have seen gamers go under the lens of the microscope in recent years due to Gamergate. It's all about grouping people up, dividing them up, and saying, well, do you want to be with the gamers or against them? Do you want to be with the men or against the men? Do you want to be with the women or against the women? Because if you vote this way, or if you do this thing, if you support this entertainer or this politician, you get into opposing the good group. If you oppose the good group, well, in a binary world, a one-dimensional world, that automatically puts you outside the ring. If you're, not an anti-fascist, you're a bad person. If you're not anti-racist, well, you are, my friend, a racist. If you're not progressive, you're against progress. And if you're not conservative or a libertarian, you don't believe in conservation or liberty whatsoever, that's the box you're in. Call it a day. I don't believe in that. I think everybody has their own individual merits and flaws. Their character should be assessed if we're going to judge people at all, and we all do judge. We are pattern recognition machines that look around, and we have associations with things that are good, bad, and in between. So I understand that we have a natural propensity to be discriminatory. We are very discriminating when we're picking out the grapes or picking out whatever we are at the supermarket, at the grocery store. We are looking for quality. We're looking for things we like. And that's just the way that our brains work. We are, bigoted, looking for the best for ourselves by design. I'm not saying intelligent design, but that's just the way that our systems work. So with intersectionality, I don't think that we need to be putting men and women against each other, or if we need to be, talking about race every 5 seconds. The Marxist ideology is all about class differences. You have your rich bourgeois class, and you have the serfs and the other people below, however you'd like to classify it. So there is this difference. There is this idea that we don't want to give the rich too much power because we come up with things like the oligarchy and the aristocracy and the plutocracy. All these different things can be derived from a system where there's great wealth inequality. But of course, we also live in a system, we also use a system called capitalism, in which a high tide can lift all boats. I'm not talking about trickle-down economics, the Reagan-era stuff. I think we should have tax cuts. I think that we should have a system where people are encouraged to work hard, to try to be the best, to try to build their merit and work their way up in the system. And I think they should be given as much opportunity as possible. This is talking about my goals, not the systems to get there. I don't think that intersectionality or the modern religion that is social justice is the best way to get to this more equitable world, because you are generating racism. Might be altruistic, but you are generating racism, otherism, sexism, because you're taking the third wave, fourth wave feminism, the intersectional feminism, you're taking different people and breaking them down into subcategories and saying, well, you have this category, and this category, and this means you have this many victim points. Now, if you ask an intersectionalist, they'll say, don't listen to Jeff Tidwell. You don't know what you're talking about. You're wrong. Get lost. Fuck off. They might say those things because they want to, they believe in it. Again, I'm not saying that it's wrong. I'm saying that I don't think it works best. But you're going to have people that are collective thinkers. They think, strength in numbers, and we are on our team. We're in this group. And we feel the collective, the familial feeling, the association we have as part of our identity. I personally know that, because I have, white skin, or I have my Anglo background, whatever it might be. If I'm male, I know that I have in-group preference. I know that I'm looking for mirrors of myself out there, and I prefer, in general, things that are familiar. So if everybody, starts to associate and communities form, you have each of the subgroups. If you break it down, well, the straights have a group, and the gays have a group, and this has a group, and that has a group. You keep on grouping, and ultimately what you're doing is you are dividing people up. Identity politics, intersectionality, it is dividing people up. So I think it is lightly hypocritical for Bernie Sanders to come out and say, well, Trump, don't divide people up. Because, yeah, Trump is appealing to the constituents, the people, the voters, in a way that they're familiar with, that they're used to. And there is, people can say it if they want. If they think that there's a racial tinge to it, I can't say that there's a, racial tinge. I don't see it. Many people across all races, genders, occupations, religions, whatever group, whatever immutable characteristic you might have, or a non-immutable, something that's part of your life by choice. People of all different, backgrounds have fallen behind Trump. They like Trump. They like what he stands for, because ultimately the primary identity that Trump appeals to, and they don't like this because it's nationalism. Nationalist. That means America first. Americans first. Not splitting us up into races or sexes or whatever it might be, but actually bringing us all together and saying, you're either an American or you're not an American. And it's the federal government's solemn duty to look after Americans first. And Trump has brought that back. It's always been the case, but over the past couple of years, with President Bush, and that's George W. Bush, and President Obama, there has been a little bit more of a globalist emphasis, taking away jobs from America, outsourcing, getting the TPP going. Thankfully, it was, had been kiboshed. There are two schools of thought, collectivism and individualism. I believe in individuality. It is perhaps at some point self-defeating if you look only inward and you don't reach out to people to help you and to be your friends, to associate with you. If you look only inward, you might not like what you find if it's just you. Of course, we have the world we interact with, we have things we create, we write stories, we do creative things, we do woodworking, we do knitting, we do all sorts of things that bring our expression of ourselves into the world, and people can associate with it and like it and see themselves in it. Look for that mirror in you and find it. Find common appeal. So intersectionality, good intended, well intended, you know where that goes, what road that paves. And so in the long run, we have yet to see exactly what the social Marxist movement of putting people into groups and saying, well, you have oppressive groups and you have oppressed groups, and we want to help the oppressed groups by taking away from the oppressor class. But they never have an answer for why, what happens once, they go after the majority, because the majority rules under democracy. We love democracy, which is, direct democracy is tyranny. But they'll not have an answer for why, what happens when the oppressor becomes the oppressed. Is there a transitional period? Do we decide not to put affirmative action or whatever it might be against this group? When do Asians get fairness in college test scores? Questions like that. Why are they, seen as the oppressor? Aren't they a minority group? And then that's the real tell for intersectionality. When it starts to break down, when you have people from one feminist group fighting another feminist group and saying, well, you don't really believe in the modern religion. You haven't placed your faith over reason and gone into our, haven't become disciples. I don't want to use another word, but I'll call it a modern religion. You come into our modern religion, but you're a different denomination. You're a different sect. And we have conflict. I'm like, look, if you're going to have a postmodern ideology, and you're going to take us using absolutism and postmodernism, bring us into clown world, I think you guys need to be at least on the same team with this, because enough people are already looking at the situation and going, the battle might be almost over. If you're talking about female wage gap or whatever it might be, gay marriage has been the law of the land for almost 10 years. Democrats wouldn't get near it for so long. Like Obama was even a civil unions Democrat. Hillary Clinton didn't get on board until after about 2011, 2012. But we've gotten this societal progress where we see, it's okay to be gay. It's okay. All these things are part of our culture now in a way they were never before. I think it was, a lot of people were just, don't ask, don't tell. But now we're in a place where it's better. People can actually express themselves fully and live the full experience. And of course, there are challenges ahead. There are things that have not been resolved. There is still animosity. There is still discrimination. There is still some hatred out there. But not as much as people purport. Things have changed over the years. It's just a question of, has the rhetoric changed? Or does it keep on getting more and more extreme? Do you keep an absolute position and have this absolute moral superiority over the situation and say, well, we're not there yet. Well, who decides when we're there? Who decides when the oppressor becomes the oppressed? Who decides all this stuff? People. Institutions are just people. That includes the popes and the prophets of modern religion. These postmodern ideologies for the devoutly secular, and some people that are non-secular as well, might fall into outrage culture. They might want to look at somebody saying a joke they don't like, or using the wrong words, or whatever it might be, not understanding a situation, and go, well, I'm outraged. I have to point this out to get moral virtue and universal truth. I need to, enlighten the world. I need to preach, point out what I see. Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. But intersectionality, I wish I could get behind it more. There are some, good messages in there about looking out for those that have trouble standing up for themselves. That's something virtuous to think about. But it's all about taking it just a step too far. And it is destroying things. I think that identity politics will be under referendum in 2020. There people that already voted against political correctness in 2016 when they elected President Trump. So it's just a matter of time before, it gets locked in, I think. I do think that people are tired of being told what to say. They're tired of people they love being canceled, or they're tired of being called a bigot by anybody that disagrees with their sort of mundane political positions and opinions. They're basically a generic conservative. They like lower taxes. They like the free market. Oh, they're a bigot. Okay. Doesn't make any sense to me. I think people are tired of it.